Welcome to the Bladtcast. We've got a lot of music to talk to you about this week, so we're going to jump right into it with a return guest to the podcast. He probably doesn't even realize this. Rachel Bolan of Skid Row. He's making his triumphant return to our show only a scant 440 episodes later. This is podcast 505. And Rachel, you joined us way back in episode 65 in June of 2014. But welcome back to the show.
Wow, dude, that's really congrats having a podcast going on that long, man. That's killer.
Uh-oh.
Did I lose you? Hello. It looks like you're muted. Your mic is muted. There you go.
Did you hear me now? And that's the good
I hear you. I got you. There you are.
We'll just stick with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you guys, you have a new album coming out, Skid Row does, and we're definitely going to talk about that, the new song, the new video. But I think a great place to start would be the band's new singer, Eric Gronwall. Talk a little bit about Eric, and anybody who's heard any of the new songs, I think, feel that he really brings kind of the energy and just sort of the range, the voice that people come to expect from Skid Row, right?
Yeah, man. He grew up listening to us, and it's really cool. Actually, the whole story is really cool. How he's from Sweden, outside of Stockholm, and he won Stockholm Idol or Swedish Idol,
Right.
And his audition song was 18 in Life. So talk about a full circle. It's a song that broke his career as well as a song that broke our career. You know what I mean? And here we are, how many, years later, and now he's our lead singer and he's doing an amazing job. We're so fortunate to get him, and he brings an energy that, to the band that has just raise the bar. It's kind of the same when Rob Hammersmith joined the band, and Scotty Snake and I played harder and we played better. And now that Eric joined the band, all four of us are playing better and playing harder, and it's just a really good fit. And his voice suits the band, his attitude suits the band. He's just such a great performer, and on top of all that, he's just a really good dude, and he just has the band's interest in mind, and he has a great work ethic, and obviously the dude has pipes.
Yeah, in preparing to talk to you today, I was reminded that he was in that NBC Jesus Christ Superstar a few years ago, which also included, for our visual audience, I've got an Alice Cooper shirt on. He was Herod in that. And I was just watching and I'm like, oh, yeah, I obviously, you can't help but notice, and he had that big voice and he's standing there and, John Legend is just sort of looking at him, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's, so he's very versatile, which I think is great, you want to be able to hit those high notes that people expect from the classic Skid Row songs. But he definitely brings a new energy to the new songs. So that's great. Now, my understanding is that your first show with him in front of a crowd was opening up the residency for the Scorpions in Vegas earlier this year. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, nothing like just putting your toe in the water with a small club gig just to get used to it.
Jumping in the deep end, man. And the crazy thing about it is that, we were obviously on Zoom all the time and on the phone all the time because he was recording the record remotely at his house in Sweden. But we had never met in person until the Tuesday before the first show of the residency. So It's like, okay, the guy sings great, but we haven't had any real hangout time, And so we met him on a Tuesday. We rehearsed Wednesday and Thursday. Took Friday off, and our first show was that Saturday. And, we were all jumping in the deep end, you know what I mean? And it's like we got together and we had the same offbeat sense of humor, just a bunch of knuckleheads that grew up with the same background. We all liked the same music. And most importantly, we all had the same work ethic. And we take great pride in what we do. So it was just really a seamless transition, and it's still that way. And he's just very creative. He's the first singer we ever had that played an instrument, and he plays guitar and piano, and it's just it's really brought a new energy to the band, and it's a new energy that was an old energy. So we feel we're just hitting on all eight cylinders right now. And we feel really good about it.
Yeah, no, I mean I think that's the important thing, and the surprising to hear you say that you didn't meet him right until right before the show, because you meet somebody on Zoom, it's so different, I mean, for one thing, I mean, just off the top of my head, he could have had like just the worst body odor of any human on earth, and you would have had no way to know it, and then you're like, wait, we're going to be on a bus with this guy?
Yeah,
So
well,
I mean,
again, he fits right in.
it's perfect. Yeah. So, but that's great though that it works well. And that was back in the spring. So you guys have done shows together. I know you had a big tour this summer with Warrant and some other bands mixed and matched, right? How did that go?
Yeah, it's still going. We have a few more shows. It's a Live to Rock tour, and
Right.
it's us and Warrant and Wingers on a lot of the shows, and then Quiet Ride is on some, and Lita Ford was on a couple. But yeah, it's mainly us, Warrant, and Winger, and it's just been going great. And the cool thing is, man, we've all the bands have known each other for well over 30 years, and it's just easy. It's just so easy. We're all just like walking in and out of each other's dressing rooms and just, sitting there, and we're all buds to begin with. So to go on tour with, 10 more of your friends is just such a cool thing. And it just goes so easy, Hey man, do you think we could borrow this? Our Aunt Blue. Yep. Our crew is already on it. This went wrong. Our bass pedal went, okay. Our crew's on it, so it's really cool stuff like that. And it just means a lot to be able to still do it after all these years with our friends.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's obviously, when you go out for a night and you're going to get, three bands or maybe four some nights, where you get all these songs that you're like, oh my God, I know these songs. And, I know that you've known Eddie Trunk for a long time, since early in your career. And he always makes this, I mean, he's made it a lot of times, but the first time he ever made it, I hadn't really thought about it. So just like the fact that the music of the late 80s and early 90s, there's a generation where it's like it's their hard rock, their classic rock. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
sure. And I mean, I was in I like started high school in 1990. So, it's like in the sweet spot for me. Love older stuff from the 70s and 60s, but the stuff that I would buy new and go and see bands in concert, I saw you guys you did a show when you were on tour with Pantera, and it was like a parking lot at the Meadowlands. It wasn't inside the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
But and and it's interesting to think about the fact that, yeah, I mean, it's 30 years ago, a little bit more than 30 years ago, that Slave to the Grind came out, and people that come to see you, obviously they're bringing their kids who were nowhere near born when any of this stuff came out. So it's got to be great to be able to share it, just multi-generational fans out there in the crowd.
Yeah, it's something, because I remember when I went, like, I guess it was before we toured with Kiss, and I went to a Kiss show, and I remember seeing a dad with his daughter on his shoulders, and she had the ear protection on and whatever. I'm like, man, that's really cool. Hopefully someday that'll happen with Skid Row. Like, they'll bring their little brothers and little sisters or their kids, and it's been happening for years now, and it's just a really cool feeling. I mean, first of all, there's a couple different phases of cool in there. It's like, all right, the parents are that cool that they want to turn the kids on to the music that they grew up listening to.
Right.
And the other part is the fact that we're transcending generations, and which gives a band longevity, and it's just a really cool feeling to see that, and to just to see like a 7-year-old kid chucking the horns at us up on stage. It's just hilarious, and it's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because my son is 7 and my daughter's 4, and I feel like my 4-year-old daughter would probably be more excited to go to, she definitely, we brought her to a baseball game and she wanted the little ear protection. So,
Yeah.
I get it totally. But, and it is fun, but it's just like, I'm like, yeah, they're just a little young to go and see, Uncle Alice get his head chopped off, So, but I definitely think about that. I think about I have friends who are in a Kiss tribute band, and I'm like, maybe the baby step where I don't spend $400 to take them to see actual Kiss.
Right.
And we see how they do with the tribute band. And but yeah, I mean, and especially when you have these multi-band bills, obviously over the summer, one of the big tours was that stadium tour with Motley, Def Leppard, Joan Jett, and Poison. And I mean, I think there were grandparents, kids, grandkids that were there for all those, and you see a lot of it. And your tour, a much more affordable ticket than that. So that's
yeah, I would say.
You get just as many hits, and you only spend a fraction of the money to go.
Yeah, and you're a lot closer to the stage.
It's a great point. Yeah, I'm in LA, so I went to SoFi Stadium where the Super Bowl was, and I'm like, these wouldn't even have been great seats for the Super Bowl. But so I'm glad that to hear that it's going well. I talked about in the intro that the last time I talked to you was in 2014. And Johnny Solinger was the front man of the band at that point. And I hadn't seen you guys in a while. And I thought he was great. You guys did a show in Hermosa Beach that I went to. And it was, anytime a band changes a singer, has somebody new, for a couple minutes, you're like, oh, I wonder how this is going to be. And then you hear these songs that and you love. And then, you guys had some new EPs out at that point, and I'd been listening to them. So it was like, you kind of get over it pretty quickly, when you get to see it, and I mean, it's while I haven't had a chance to see this iteration, and that's the thing I think that a lot of people didn't realize is that, I know Johnny's passed away, but he was in the band for like 15 years, right? So you had, he had been the singer for the longest run in the band, unless I'm mistaken, right?
No, you're correct. That's correct. Yeah. He joined in 2000 and we parted ways, I think, in 2015.
Right. So, and I think it's great to hear that, you guys have found Eric and, that it's going well. So, and you said the tour's still out, so that's great. And let's talk about The Gang's All Here, which that'll be available October 14th. And of course, it's all about the pre-orders. And I thought it was interesting. It says to pre-order and pre-save now, go to skidrow.com. That's like a new term where I guess it's like, save it in your iTunes or whatever app you use.
I guess
so that on October 14th, because I've done that with a few albums lately. Again, I have 2 kids. It's a little bit harder to get to the record store than it used to be. So I'm like, oh, wow, that new album is already here for me to listen to. So October 14th, that's when everybody can get it. Talk a little bit about this album. It's the first full album in a while, or
in a really long time. Man, I don't even know how many years, but we started. It's been a weird process, and by weird, I just mean so much has happened during the process of it. We started it once, and then we decided we needed more songs, and then we switched labels, and then COVID hit, and then we switched singers in the midst of the whole thing. Got a new singer. So up to that point, we started from scratch with a new label, and we got Nick Raskulinix. He produced the record, and his track record is pretty damn stellar. Rush.
Just for our audience, he's worked with Foo Fighters, Alice in Chains, Rush.
Hellstorm, Stone Sour.
But it's one of those things where it's like, if he'd worked with one of those bands, you'd probably be like, yeah, that's probably going to be fine. But I've I've heard him talk a lot about his process. I referenced your friend Eddie Trunk before. I know he listens to Eddie's show,
Yeah.
and so he's on somewhat regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely one of those guys that he's newer in the grand scheme of things. He's not Bob Ezrin or something, but you hear him and you go like, oh yeah, I love like 8 albums that this guy produced. I just
It's
didn't realize.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And he's a very good friend. And just one night at dinner, he goes, let's do a Skid Row record. I'm like, don't play with me, man. Don't just say this because we drank some sake. No, but he goes, no, I'm serious. Let's do a record. So we went in with a bunch of songs, and he's old school. He does what a producer is supposed to do, and whether you get your feelings hurt or whatever, if you get your feelings hurt easy, then he might not be the right guy for you. But he's like, love this song, that one sucks, dude, I love these parts, this and that. And we just went in and just kind of tore everything apart and started with the basic foundation of the song and built it up. And the one thing he said to us that just, it still resonates, is he's like, you guys need to be more Skid Row. And it's like, wow. And it started to make sense after a while, because it's like, okay, I did used to play bass lines like that, or I did used to write parts like that. And so he got us back on track and got us back, for lack of a better term, to our roots. And it's really not that easy to retrace your steps with as long as our career has been, and he got us back there because he was a fan first. And those songs were a photograph in time for him, where they're not for us because they're with us all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, he got us back there. And during that whole process, we got Eric in the band, and he, like I said, he recorded remotely. Like he was in Sweden. He couldn't travel over here. And, Nick and him just recorded his vocals, like, here, dude, try this, try that, change this part, and then came to the band and we gave our input. And that was the weirdest part of it. And it was a little stressful, but once we saw how, like, basically how much Eric had his shit together, it was like, wow, this is really cool. This guy, he's smart. He knows how to, record his vocals. This is great. So they all came, all the vocals except for 2 songs, which we finished in Vegas, came in, and then it was time for him to fly over here. But the funniest thing about it is, he told me after the fact, after all the vocals were done, he's like, I had never recorded my vocals before. He goes, I just went on YouTube and learned how to work a compressor and all this. He knew good mic technique, obviously, but
right.
And I just go, man, I am so glad you didn't tell me that ahead of time. I would have, all my hair would have fallen out. I would have looked 1,000 years old. So, but yeah, so he adapted to the songs and what we sent him so quickly, and that it just sounded natural. And he was knocking off a song a day, he's like, yeah, I did this today, have family commitments tomorrow, so I'll get to the next one. I was like, awesome. This guy is like, he's just so down to earth, and like I said, he has the same work ethic. It's like, only your best is what you'll get, and it was just a stressful and weird process, but it was really cool as well.
Were the rest of the band, were you guys all in the studio together, or was it early enough in COVID where everybody was like at their own home studios and sending each other tracks, or how did the music part of it come together?
No, when we got together for pre-production and for recording, we all got together. We tested before we got in the studio, and we wore masks. It was just, it's before any of us really had any kind of vaccine or any kind of defense against anything. And so we just played it safe, and Nick played it safe, and Nathan, the assistant, played it safe, and everything was cool, and no one had a problem with anything. And that's how we did it. And then once we all started getting vaxxed, we're like, all right, I'm taking my mask off. I can't breathe. I can't breathe and rock, So, but we did what we had to do.
Yeah, no. There's the different stages of the pandemic, and I've talked to enough bands where they did it, the different ways. They did it the way where you guys were in the studio together, and then the other times, they were able to get guest musicians or maybe use people easier because it's like, well, everybody was going to have to, record it themselves and then send it. So, and I don't know, just to my ear, it's not like I can tell the difference. I'm like, oh, this is one of them Zoom records. You can tell, you know what I mean? So
Right, right. Yeah.
probably for some bands though, they'd be like, "Oh man, this would have sounded better." But good for you guys that you were able to do it. And really, it's just sort of Eric off in the distance, trying to get the vocals in there. I wanted to talk about the latest song that's been released is Time Bomb, and I've heard the song, and by the time most people are going to hear this, the video will already be out. Let's start with the video. Talk about Dale, who worked on it with you, who'd done videos before, I guess, for Five Finger Death Punch and Guns N' Roses.
Mhm.
But talk a little bit about getting to work with him and how that was able to sort of bring bring the music to life in video form.
It was, first of all, I'd never directed a video before, so I co-directed with Dale, and I always had it like, yeah, maybe someday, but I never really pressed for it. And then when we were shooting Tear It Down, we were just on a dinner break, and Scotty said, "Man, you should direct our next video." And I'm like, "All right, if all the guys are cool with it, I will."
Yeah.
And so I made a treatment up, and I always start really large, so it was very theatrical and whatever. And then I met Dale. We met. Our management company had known Dale, and they said, "Man, you should really meet this dude." And so we talked. I said, "Here's my vision," and he's like, "Unfortunately, your vision is going to cost about $250,000." He goes, let's work on it, and we'll get it to where all you guys feel good about it. So he's got a lot of energy and a lot of ideas, and I love people like that. I love working with people like that. He's very passionate, and he was stoked to work with us as we were to work with him. We saw what he did with Five Finger and a couple other things he did, and right away I was like, man, this guy, I like the way he approaches stuff. So we just talked on the phone a few times, and we hit it off. We hit it off really well. And the day that the band met him, other than Snake met him on a Zoom, but the rest of the guys didn't meet him until we showed up at the studio, and everyone got along with him great. And there was a great energy there, and everything, like the set and stuff that I was saying, here's a design, just jotting down sketches and sending it over sending him pictures of it. He just had built, and I saw that through the whole process, and it was cool. It was really cool working with him because, like I said, he has a great energy. The funniest thing was there's a few parts in the video where I'm using the term loosely, acting, but without lines. We're just so you'll see it on, I think, Wednesday. So he's like, "All right, direct." And I was like, "Oh, okay, it's fine," because up until that point it was performance. And then so I was like, "All right, cool." And it probably would have been, I felt this rush of nerves, which I like being out of my comfort zone, and this is something completely new that I never did before. But it probably would have went a lot easier if it were people I did not know, but this was like, telling my family, "Okay, do this now." Da, 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 da. And it was pretty cool, man. And the guys were into it, and we had a lot of fun with it. And then the final result, we just finished editing it, and it came out really good. It came out really good. It's my vision that I had from a different direction. It doesn't really make sense saying that, but I'm really happy with the way the video came out. It looks great. And like I said, just working with him and his whole crew, and Mills, the editor, these guys are really cool. And there was never any, well, I think your idea is stupid. You know, I got this kind of experience. You don't, you know, there's never any of that. And it was a great learning experience for me. I would love to do it again. It would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense that if you're going to step up and be a director, you have to actually be comfortable. Like, yeah, I'm just going to have to tell people what to do. You know, we were talking about the producer for the album, Nick Raskulinecz, having worked with Rush, you know, and it wasn't like, you know, he's old and it was early in their career. You know, they were already, you know, these icons, and you're like, no, Neil, let me tell you how you need to drum here. You know, so you have to be able to do that, or you're not going to be, you know, not going to be good in that authority role, producer, director, whatever. You referenced another video that you guys did for this album, Tear It Down. Now, did you guys just go, hey, look, they're knocking that house down, let's just play in front of it, or was there more to it than that?
No, well, no, there wasn't much more to it, but it was kind of like, hey, they're tearing down a funeral home and you're shooting a video on the streets of Passaic or Patterson, wherever it was. And I'm like, we're all like, what? so we just showed up. We were in Jersey, and, you know, we showed up and they're like, okay, you're playing right in the street. We got all the streets blocked off. And it was actually a pretty fun experience. People were gathering around. There was a school, and I'm like, oh man, he's dropping a bunch of F-bombs in this song through all these speakers. There's an elementary school. Can't wait to see the principal come run out the front door. And sure as hell, man. But yeah, a lot of people were gathering on the street and having fun. And we've never done a video like that before. And it was cool. It was a lot of fun, man. And being in our home state, of course, made it even more fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm glad that that's what it was, you know, that it was just as simple as like, yeah, let's just go play.
Yeah.
And, you know, just to one more thing before we wrap up, you know, we're talking about sort of, you know, multi-generational appeal. We talked about the tour that you guys went on, talked about the stadium tour. And then I know that, you know, merchandising is such a big part of it. We talked about Kiss earlier, you know, and they basically invented it. But when you have a brand that's as recognizable as Skid Row, you know, obviously that's got to be a big part of it. And, you know, in the notes before, you know, I was putting everything together to talk to you, I see that there's a lot of sort of that kind of licensing. And I mean, I know that's important because, you know, if I don't buy things there, but if I walk past, you know, some vintage clothing shops on Melrose here in LA, you'll see like a Def Leppard shirt from 1987. It's like $500. You're like, what? I think I might have that.
I know.
Might have a hole in it, but that might even work. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I think that and, you know, you'll see like, and I think one of the Kardashians was like wearing a Metallica shirt on something. And it's like, she's never heard a Metallica song in her life, but you know, there's these cool images and obviously just the term Skid Row. So talk a little bit about that, where it's obviously it helps the music, but it can kind of also be separate, you know, to have Skid Row shops in Hot Topic, which I've gone into Hot Topic a couple times, and whatever music they're playing in there, it's usually not Skid Row. It's usually not something that I have. It's you know, it depends on what color hair the person working at at the Hot Topic has. If it's blue, it's probably EDM, you know.
Yeah.
If they've got a mohawk, maybe you'll get like some, you know, Rancid or Operation Ivy.
Yeah. It well, we finally have a shirt in Hot Topic, which is cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Merchandise is obviously it's kind of hand in hand with every band, you know. That's you make a lot of money off of merchandise. But yeah, I'd like seeing, and this is just the purist in me, and I'm old school. If someone has a Ramones shirt on, I want them to like the Ramones. I want them to know,
or maybe be able to name 2 songs.
Right,
you know?
Right.
You set the bar low, like Blitzkrieg Bop. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So, but you know, it's pretty cool when a logo becomes, you know, just popular enough where people are like, oh yeah, this is ironic. I'm going to wear this. You know what I mean? It's funny because I saw a guy who I'm a Yankees fan, like diehard Yankees fan.
Well, I'm a Mets fan, but I'm going to continue talking to you all the same.
Snake's a Mets fan.
This is one of those rare years where they both make the playoffs.
I know. So I forget where I was, but this dude had on this really cool Yankees hat. And this was a few years ago. And I forget who we were talking about. Well, who I brought up. I think it was the year Jeter was retiring. Oh no, he was going for his 3000th hit, and I was like, "You think Jeter's gonna hit it this weekend?" And he's like, "What?" And I go, "Jeter, New York Yankees."
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I just like the hat." And I was like,
Right.
"All right."
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, obviously, people come to New York from all over the country, all over the world. They're buying a New York hat. I don't know what percentage. Obviously, the Yankees is one of the most recognizable names in sports. You're going to have some percentage. You're like, yeah, I bought a New York hat. Well, do you know what that hat is? It's like, yeah, it's New York.
New York, right?
And
right.
as much as I grew up loving the Mets, who's going to want to buy the orange and blue hat? You're going to want that navy blue with the white on it.
Exactly.
Or maybe a pink one for your daughter or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, no, and it's a great point. It's really the same thing.
Yeah, it's just branding. What
yeah,
I mean?
no, it is just branding.
Branding 101.
Yeah, sports branding, music branding. It's like you don't automatically get to talk to somebody,
Right.
Just if you'd had that conversation at Yankee Stadium, it would have been more annoying. Be like, what do you mean? Who's Jeter?
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I mean, that's got to be great, especially to have the shirt in Hot Topic, and it's probably a lot of like, we're talking about the people with their kids, looking at shirts like, what's Skid Row? What's Skid Row? All right.
Yeah.
When we get home, I've got a couple of CDs to dust off for you.
Exactly.
But what has yet to been able to gather dust, of course, is The Gang's All Here. That's the new album, available October. Well, pre-orders right now. This second you can get it, and everybody will be able to get to hear it. And there's one of the other songs I've heard from it is The Gang's All Here, which is another great song. So I think that and Time Bomb and the other one was Tear It Down. So those are the three that we've heard.
That's right.
And looking forward to hearing the rest, which October 14th is the big day. Is it just Skid Row, the website, all social media? Is it that simple, or do we have to do Skid Row official or anything like that?
No, just skidrow.com or official Skid Row on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. And I know I'm supposed to know all the links to all the different YouTube and all that, but it gets there easy. Just usually official Skid Row will get you.
We're talking, the video for Time Bomb wasn't out yet, but I was able to hear the song. I went to YouTube, I typed in Skid Row, it goes right to your channel. Then there's like, people, filmed, monkey business with their phone, which if I wanted to watch that, I could. But what I was looking for was the official page, and that came up first. So
right on. Cool. Yeah, and you can get there through our website. All the links to all our socials are on the website.
It's a lot easier to find stuff from a band, than you used to. Now it's a lot of like, hey, I wonder if Skid Row has a new album. You can find the answer to that in literally 10 seconds.
Yeah, so exactly. You don't have to wait for Circus Magazine to come out. And,
exactly.
Okay, they got a new album coming out.
Hit Parader says they're going to have a new album sometime in the next 3 years.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Well, Rachel, it's great that we got a chance to talk again. Hopefully it's less than 440 episodes before we talk again. But if it is, that's all right. I won't take it personally. But anyway, great getting to chat with you. Looking forward to the new album. And hopefully you guys are out here in LA or the LA area sometime soon. I know over the summer you were in Orange County and it was like the middle of the week. And when you live in LA, going down to Orange County, it's like, do I have 4 hours to drive down there before?
That's what everyone would say. All my friends up in LA are like, yeah, dude, I'll see you next time you're here.
Like you do anything, at the whiskey even or something? Yeah, but it's speaking of baseball, it's like trying to get to an Angels game for first pitch at 7:00 is like, you're gonna have to take the day off.
Oh yeah, Snake and I did that one time when he was living out there, and we had Yankees Angels tickets.
Sure.
We left. We thought we had plenty of time. We didn't get there until the third inning. Yeah. We were like, you got to be kidding me. So
I've had people go for a friend of mine who was a Red Sox fan. One of the years that they were playing them in the playoffs, he left work early. He left at 3. He missed the first 3 innings.
It's crazy, man. Yeah, that sounds about the same.
Anyway, the Gang's All Here is again now available for pre-orders October 14th. Thanks again, Rachel. I look forward to chatting to you again.
Right on, man. Thank you, man.
All right. Thanks again.
See ya.